Hello there, I'm Dan Rickard. I'm going to do some animation tutorials for you. First being what I call my box army. Now you can use really any type of object for this, sphere, cone, really anything you like, but I typically use boxes. They're just kind of boxy and fun. All right, so I'm going to start off by just making a simple box. Okay, it doesn't have to be any certain size. I'm going to make some perfect cubes. There we go, 15 by 15 by 15. Could be any size you want. I'm also going to zero this out. Okay, so I've selected my object. If you look down at the bottom here, there's number fields. So I'm going to right click on this dial, and that's going to zero it out, essentially putting it to the origin of the space. This is the origin. 0, 0, and then for the up angle, which is Z, we've also got 0. Okay, so 0, 0, 0, that's the origin. You can see when you move this object around, watch these number fields down at the bottom here, right? So as I move this object, it moves around. I'm moving it in X and Y change. If I move it in Z, which is up, only Z changes. Okay, so let's move on here. This is my character. Okay, essentially what this is going to do is show you how you can take a really simple object and make it into quite a complex scene with obviously a few things to do with it. All right, so object, we've got a timeline down on the bottom here. It says 0 to 100. That's fine for now. We can obviously change that at any point. We'll probably change that later. Something else to consider before we get started is your panel. It's a good idea just to open this up a little bit. So put your cursor over here and simply click and drag. Gives you two panels to work with. All right, let's turn on auto key. I'm going to find auto key here and click on it. Notice I've got a red line that goes around. Lets me know that everything in the screen is active at this point. So select my object. I have 0 keyframes, right? I haven't done anything with it yet, so there's no keyframes down here. This is my time slider. So if I click on it and drag, I'm scrubbing through the animation. Okay, so I can go anywhere I want with this. If I want to increase or decrease this timeline, if I go over to the time configuration box, I can change that up to however we want it. Okay, let's just say for now we're going to go with 30, just to say that we can do it. There we go. So hit 30, hit enter, hit OK. Notice it says 0 to 30 down here now, so that your timeline is changed. So our time slider also says a number and 30 after it. So wherever we are, it says that number on it. Okay. So to start with, we want this little box soldier to do kind of like just a bit of an idle. An idle being an animation that is typically a neutral animation, let's say in gaming, where you're not moving the character simply stands there and really doesn't do much at all. Usually like a breathing animation or something. So this guy will just be doing a simple idle where he maybe crouches down a little bit and jumps up in the air. Really not much of anything. What we're going to do with this is practice a little bit of squash and stretch. Squash and stretch really helping with the volume of an object, giving it weight, giving it more of that 3D aspect. So squash and stretch is actually quite important to giving that type of volume to objects and keeping it. So in doing squash and stretch, we're going to change our scale here. So if you click your R key, you'll notice that as you click it, it cycles through several types of scale. We want to see this one, which is select and squash, and we want to be able to use this Z handle at the top here. When you use the Z handle at the top, you can see when you push down, it pushes out the sides. If you use just a regular scale, so notice I've changed it. If you use a regular scale and push down, it simply lowers the height. Okay, that's not really squashing. That's just making it shorter. Squashing, we want to push it down and push the sides outwards. So I'm going to go back to select and squash, and that's going to go down. If I want to stretch it, I'll pull up. Notice that the sides now go in and the height goes up. So essentially it's retaining the same volume. Think of a water balloon. Think of a water balloon and how you press against the sides. The water balloon is going to kind of push out from your fingers. The water never goes anywhere. It just displaces into a different spot. So you're retaining that same volume. All right, so I'm going to press K watch what happens down here. It creates a keyframe. Okay, what is stored in that keyframe essentially is all the positional data, rotational data, translational, everything. All the types of data that you can actually animate is now stored at that one snapshot in time. Okay, so at keyframe 0, that's the state of my object. It's basically like I'm taking a picture of it, and whenever I want to see that same picture again, I go back to that keyframe. So I want you to do several keyframes across the board here. So let's do one at about keyframe 7. So we'll hit K. And I'll discuss what these are in a minute. So we'll go 0, 7. We'll do one at about 11. Okay, and we'll do one at about 20. And probably just 2 more in here. So let's say 0, 7, 11, 14, 17, and 20. Don't really need anything else at the end here. What we could do actually is just set a key over here, and essentially this is going to be just almost dead space. It'll be space where nothing is happening in the animation. It's just basically a spacer between the looping movements. Okay, so what do we want this guy to do? We need him to squash down. Okay, so this squashing essentially is anticipation, one of the other elements of animation. Okay, principles of animation, I should say. When we squash, we're building energy. We're kind of compacting this guy. He's getting ready to do his jump. Okay, so this anticipation is the pre-movement to the movement. So what do we want to do? We want him to jump up a little bit. So we're going to push him down. So I'm scaling down. Okay. So if we scrub through, we go 0 to 30 or 0 to 7 here. You can see that it moves downwards. What happens when we go to 11? It just goes back to his regular shape, right? His regular 100% scale. We want to push this up a little bit. Okay, so essentially he's going from this to popping up. He's not really jumping, okay? Remember, we're not actually lifting him off the surface. He's just kind of moving up. So squash him down, pop him up. Now we have to deal with maybe a settling animation, okay? So a little bit of follow through. So we've got this anticipation, we've got squash and stretch, we have some follow through coming. So when he jumps up into the air, or kind of really elongates himself, he has to come back down. If he comes back down to 100% size, that really isn't helping too much. We actually want him to come down and be a little bit squashed. Okay. The next one, we want him to be a little bit stretched. Not much, maybe 5 to 10%. And then at the end, we want him to be 100%. So this will help loop the animation without any hitches or pops. Let's just try pressing play to see what happens. You can either press down here on the play button, or you can hit your question mark. Okay, now we've got a little popping animation happening. We'll look around at it. You can make sound effects with it. Boing, boing, right? Whatever. Animators make sound effects. Get over it. So next step. Press your question mark again to stop that. Let's say we're okay with the animation, or if you want to adjust it, you have to kind of make up your mind. If we want to adjust it, I'm going to just move this over here a bit so we can see. I'm going to make sure this is selected, and I'll right-click Curve Editor. So inside the Curve Editor, we've got some movement, right? So these are function curves, or F curves, we call them. So function curves, and what essentially we see here, these little white dots. Notice when I select one of these, it highlights down here. So these are the keyframes, okay? And this is the amount that it's squashing, okay? So if we click Scale, you can see that this is exactly the amount that it's scaling, right? If we were to come down here and squash it a bit more, look how it moves, right? So you could really see and refine your animations this way. You could also go in here and move these around. Okay, so this will also alter it as well. The end part over here, I want this to kind of die off a little bit more. So this last one, I'm going to just change that so it's a little bit more gradual, like that. So I've got this this nice fall off here from a lot to medium to almost none to barely anything, and then back to the loop. Okay, so if I press play, there we go. Got a little bit of motion in there. All right, animation's done at this point. So let's turn off auto key. Okay. The one thing that we have to consider is, what are we going to do with this guy? Well, we're actually going to work on having many of this soldier come alive here. So we could make a soldier right next to him. Now he's got a buddy, and if we press play, you can see how they're both going to move up and down. So that's kind of fun. But there's one thing I want to do first before we get into that. So I've just deleted him. I want to increase the timeline a bit. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to take this 0, let's say 0 to 300. There we go. It's a long time, right? It's 10 seconds, 30 frames a second. So if I press play, notice what happens. He doesn't jump, right? It just kind of plays and goes through. What happens if we want the computer to help us out a bit? Okay, so we're going to get some animations that are basically computer driven and simply loops the animations we have already. So I'm going to select this guy, right click, curve editor. Notice these lines outside here. Okay, we know that this is the movement that we just slightly adjusted. We've got some movement out on the edges. I like to call these my ghost lines. This essentially, it just shows the last keyframe and the value given to that keyframe throughout time. The bottom part of our curve editor being time, the top part being our value. So if I want to play this again, there's what's called out of range types. So let's go up to Edit, Controller, Out of Range Types. There's several different types in here. Okay, I'm just going to take cycle, and you can see exactly what that's done. It's cycled our animation over and over and over and over. So essentially, if I press play at 0, it's going to continue to play this really until it gets to the end of the timeline, and then it's going to go back to 0 again. So it's a neat way to automate some animations. You just animate it once and keep playing it. You basically just loop it. Okay, I'm going to stop that. We're going to get back to this in a few minutes. We need to make some buddies here, so I'm going to hold down Shift and drag out to the side with my move tool. And I'm going to add a few more guys. So I'm going to add 9 more guys. So I've got 10 guys going across the screen. Press play. Here we go. Great. I've got my first line of defense, but I need to get some staggered animation happening in here. Okay, so I'm going to take a few of these and randomly move their animation. So I'm going to select the keys and move these down a little bit. So now we've got a little bit of randomness happening. So I'll do a few more. Let's say we'll do these ones. Okay. So let's say we're okay with that. I'm going to select all of these, hold down Shift, and I'm going to make a few more rows. Okay. I'm going to pause this for a second, and we'll come back and finish off this lesson.